Hi, welcome back. My name is Srikanth. In this new learning series, we're going to look at planning in Analytics Cloud application. This series is a good start for beginners who wanted to learn planning basics and also for BPC consultants who are interested in SAC planning. We'll start with SAP Planning Strategy. We can clearly see that it is cloud-first strategy. Basically, SAP has two planning offerings. One is SAP BPC, which is Business Planning and Consolidation, and there is another one, SAP Analytics Cloud Planning. SAP BPC is being offered as an on-premise solution for planning, and the second one, Analytics Cloud Planning, is going to be only on cloud. As defined earlier, cloud-first strategy, all the new future enhancements are going to be in Analytics Cloud Planning application. However, for the customers requiring an on-premise solution, SAP BPC has been offered as a planning solution. Before starting with SAP Analytics Cloud Planning solution, we're going to understand SAP BPC Roadmap and how we're going to transition from BPC to Analytics Cloud for the existing customers. Let's take a look at the roadmap picture here. And the top one is the traditional BPC system, and the bottom one is the traditional BW IP solution. The first one is user-friendly, so most of the operations are done by business users or functional team. For the second one, BW IP solution, IT support is needed, either from the BW consultants or BPC technical consultants. A while ago, SAP combined these two solutions in one product. It's called BPC 10 NetWeaver, and this combines standard BPC model, which comes from the traditional BPC system, and the embedded one, this comes from the BW IP functionalities. And this product evolved to the latest version of BPC, which is running on BW4 HANA as well. So in the current version of BPC, it is going to have two flavors: standard, which is traditional BPC, and the other one is embedded, which comes from the BW IP supported model. And BPC also has another flavor called BPC optimized for S4HANA, and this is only available on S4HANA system, and it is used for real-time planning. Now we also have another planning solution on cloud. This is called Analytics Cloud for Planning, and it is cloud only, and it's not available on premise. And all the future enhancements are going to be in Analytics Cloud for Planning application. As part of this learning series, we're going to understand how existing customers are going to move from existing BPC system to Analytics Cloud for Planning as well. This move can be from the BPC system on BW4, or it could be BPC optimized for S4HANA. So we're going to understand current SAP provided options in order to move these BPC systems planning applications to Analytics Cloud for Planning application. Let's first understand the technical models of the BPC variants. Currently we have these 1 and 2. We'll start with the BPC on BW4. So we can see that initially it started with 10 add-on, and then the BPC is being integrated as part of BW, and then now on BW4 HANA it again gone back as an add-on which is outside of BW4 HANA system. And this add-on is going to contain two models, as we just talked. It's going to be standard model with standard planning components, and there's an embedded model which combines BW IP with embedded planning components. Just take a quick look at the differences between standard model versus embedded. The standard model is being not having major changes in the product. It's going to be still containing that environment and the planning model, data manager packages, and analysis office EPM plugin. It's going to be the same process we've been doing for the several years. And on the other side, BPC embedded model contains the IP supported model, integrated planning supported model, where you've got the aggregation levels, several planning functions, Foxflow, and also custom ABAP code objects to fulfill the planning requirements, and we got the Analysis Office AO plugin to do the user interface. And of course, got Lumira as well for the user interface. So to summarize, your embedded model is going to use the BWIP planning model capabilities. This is BPC on BW system. Let's take a look at the other variant which is talked about, BPC optimized for S4HANA. This is used for real-time planning, and this model is basically for S4HANA tables where you got HANA CVs created, and on top of that HANA CVs there's going to be virtual providers, and those virtual providers will be accessed in aggregation levels, and the BACS queries are given as part of the standard content, and then the workbooks are given for the planning solution. This is the financial planning in S4HANA system. SAP has given standard business content for this model. You can see all these objects are part of standard business content. And then you can also write back data to standard SAP planning data table, which is ACTOC-P. This is something on S4HANA optimized BPC. Now we got two different SAP BPC's flavors. One on BW, and another one is on S4HANA system. Now how these BPC systems are going to transition to SAC planning. There are several options. A move completely to SAP Analytics Cloud, which is difficult. It's not an easy task. It involves a lot of effort and also complexity involved in moving all the planning solutions from existing BPC to Analytics Cloud. And the second option is complement existing BPC with Analytics Cloud. So you're going to have an integration between your BPC system and Analytics Cloud, and then you can access the data from your BPC system, and you can write the data back to your BPC system, and you can import and export the data between your BPC systems and etc. So it's kind of a hybrid model, and we can leverage the best of both worlds from BPC as well as Analytics Cloud. And the third option is develop new functional plans in Analytics Cloud. So probably you will have a strategic financial planning happening in BPC, and you can start having some new functional plans in Analytics Cloud application. And slowly you can migrate the existing planning solutions to Analytics Cloud over a period of time. It's going to take a very long time. Let's take a look at the hybrid approach, or the integration, data integrations in a quick note. So you can see that as we talked, we have a standard BPC model and we got an embedded BPC model. And you got SAC data connections acquired, which is import, and there's live data connection. And the ways to integrate, you can see that you can do the import and export, and also write back functionality to your standard BPC model. After you finish your planning thing, you can do the write back to your standard BPC model. And I also have the latest functionality to write the data back to BW system as well. And let's move to the embedded model. This is the line which is in gray color. So you can see all the ways to integrate the embedded model. The one unique feature for embedded model is live connection, which is not possible with standard BPC model. So with this live connection, you can access the embedded BPC model in Analytics Cloud and do all your planning in Analytics Cloud. No data import or export necessary. And then your Analytics Cloud can be a front end for your SAP BPC system. So these are the different ways where you can work on a hybrid approach with data integrations between your existing BPC system to SAC planning solution. Okay, that's all the background I wanted to give to understand the BPC transitioning to SAC in the SAP's future roadmap. So for this particular learning series, our focus is going to be planning in SAC as a greenfield development approach, which means we're not going to talk about any migration topics in this series. We'll focus on how planning solution is created in Analytics Cloud Planning object. However, we always compare or relate to BPC functionality and concepts while we're creating objects in SAC Planning solution. So in this series, we're going to cover the below topics. They are going to be starting with creating a planning model, and we're going to create dimensions in this planning model, and we will have some data loaded to these dimensions as well as the transaction data. And then going to create some data actions which are similar to planning functions in BPC. And we will embed or trigger these planning data actions in SAC story. And we also look at the analytics designer scripting for planning capabilities in SAC. There are other topics around SAC planning, which are like security, audit, and also data locking, and etc. We're going to touch base on these concepts as well in the end. As part of preparation, we're going to download the sample sales data Excel file. So I downloaded it from Open SAP course. So you can also do that. I'm going to provide the link to you. I downloaded it to my desktop. This is the file. And this is going to contain the data for transactional data and also the other dimensions. You can see the customer, sales org, entity, and planning. So we'll import the data from this flat file into our dimensions and our planning model in the following exercises. You can also download the exercise PDF document, which is going to give step-by-step instructions with screenshots. So if you're missing any navigations, you can follow this exercise PDF so that you see all the steps in order. So that's going to be your preparation. And then you can start creating a planning model. So I'm going to access my Analytics Cloud application. And here on the home page, I'm going to say create a model. It's going to be the same as the other analytics model creation. I'm going to start with blank model, and then in the blank model, by default, it is going to take the planning as the setting. So it's going to be created as a planning model. If I want to switch this to a reporting model, I can do that by changing the setting. So I'm going to keep that planning model because this is what my objective is going to be. And you can see the data foundation and the other two dimensions, which are pre-built, the version and the date. They are the standard dimensions. By default, they are created by the system when you start creating a model. So you cannot avoid it. You can see that these are the two mandatory dimensions in your planning model. You can create new dimensions by going into edit and add new dimension. You can also add existing dimension. Existing dimension in the case where you already have a public dimension created outside of this model, and you can use those public dimensions as well. You can start creating a new dimension here, and you have the option to choose account, generic, and date, as well as organization. So account dimension is a unique dimension where we used to see in the BPC standard. Initially, the traditional planning is for financial accounting, so where you got different accounts in it for expense, revenue, and etc. And then the planning is mainly based on those accounts. So that's why you see the account dimension as a default. The SAC planning model is mainly referencing the concepts of BPC standard model. Okay, so that's why we see the account dimension here. So what are we going to put in account dimension? It's going to be all the different measures. We're going to keep it in account dimension as we do in the standard BPC model. So my dimension is going to be a custom one. I'm going to say customer is my dimension, and then I'll say a generic, and say if I wanted to make this as a public dimension and use it in other models as well, I can mark this one and say add it. And you're going to go, you can see that this customer dimension has been added, and you also see the several properties are added. Properties are your attributes to the dimension, and the members or your data records in that dimension. The concept and the terminology is very similar to what we have in standard BPC. So that's why I say a lot of similarities between your standard BPC model to your SAC planning model. So what you're going to do, go to this customer, and then you can enter the member IDs in this particular dimension. You can also go to the Excel spreadsheet I have, and then copy paste those members in it, and then save it. You can also define the hierarchies as we're going to look at all these exercises in the next sessions of this series. I'm going to go back, and then I can create a number of other dimensions from the edit tab. And once you finish all these dimensions created, and then you're going to save it. So in order to save the model, you need one account dimension as a mandatory requirement. So you're going to choose that. So I'm going to create one just for the saving the planning model purpose. So I'm going to call this as measures, and I'll say account dimension, say add. This has been added. I'm going to add another record in it. So I'm going to say net amount, and can just give the description as net amount. That's going to be my KPI. I'm going to keep it as row and say count type is going to be income. And I will say I'll leave the other aggregations. Just keep the aggregation type as sum. And that's it. I'm going to go back to my model, and I can save this model now. I will put it in the samples and say planning SAC planning model. Say okay. That's it. My planning model is being created, and with some dimensions in it. So customer already, there's an error because I already have a customer dimension as a public dimension in the past, so I cannot have that dimension name again. So what I'm going to do, I will say, so what I'm going to fix this one, I'm going to select this one and say delete it. This has been deleted. I can add a new dimension. This time I'm going to say plan customer. I'm going to give the name plan customer. I'm going to generic and then add public dimension and say add it. It's going to be okay now. I'll save this model. I'm going to put this same name, say okay. Now it's been saved successfully. Now we also wanted to look at the data management here. Data management for the model. So you got the option to import the data. So you can choose from a file, and then you can provide the source file, the Excel file what we have downloaded, and then select the source file and import the data into the planning model, which is going to import the transaction data. You can also go to the different dimensions and get the data loaded for those. For example, if I go to the plan customer and then I go to the data management, and then I will be able to get the data into either from the file or data source. The data source option is if you're getting the data from an S4HANA system or BW system, and etc. A file is from your file server or your local desktop. In my case, I can do either file import, or I can go to the dimension and enter the data directly here by copy paste from my Excel spreadsheet. We're going to look at these data import options in detail in the next exercise sessions. This is from the data integration perspective. We always go to the data management and get the data for the dimensions as well as the model. Switching back to the presentation. So now move to the data actions here. Data actions are kind of a planning functions. In in IP, in integrated planning, the embedded model, we see a lot of planning functions created for copying, reevaluating, and also doing some distribution functionalities. And if we cannot achieve with the standard function, you probably write some Fox scripting, or you may call some above objects to get your complex requirements done. That is from the IP perspective, integrated planning perspective. From the standard BPC modeling perspective, you may have DM packages created for copying and also reevaluating, and also if it is a complex formula to be done, then you probably end up having a logic script in BPC standard to achieve your requirement. So these are the scenarios in traditional BPC where planning customization is done. Now, the similar functionality in Analytics Cloud is achieved through data actions. So you can create a data action with simple planning functions, and if the functionality is not achieved through those functions, then you can write advanced formula with scripting. So we're going to take a look at that screen navigation and then understand what are the data actions are for. So I'm going to the system, access the create, and then say process, and you'll see allocation, value driver tree, and data actions. So I'm going to choose data actions here. And then data action name could be functions or something, you can call it as. And then the default model, you're going to choose your planning model, which you just created. And then save it. The data action saved successfully, and then we start adding a step to it. So you can add a step here, add copy step, which is going to add a step for you. Just say copy 20 data, and then just do it. And you can also add another step, and then if you wanted to add another step to it, so you can go and add another step. So the steps are sequenced. It's like a planning sequence. This time I can choose another copy to 2022 something, and save it. And now I'm going to add another step. This time I'm going to add an advanced formula. So here in this advanced formula, you have a visual graphical interface and also scripted interface where you can write some scripting to achieve your requirement. This is what I was telling, which is similar to your logic scripts in BPC standard. And then you're sequencing all these actions, data actions, steps, and into the data action. So now my data action has got 2 steps. And so I'm going to call this data action in my SAC story. So I can go to SAC and create a story. Yeah, leave it. And then I can just access a canvas page, and I'm going to just keep the table, existing model, and I'm just going to select the planning SAC and keep it that. And here my table is going to get, I don't have any data from the model, it's just going to display nothing. And but I'm going to insert data action here. So you got an option to insert data action trigger. It's going to look like this. And then in the data action trigger, you're going to select the data action what you just created, copy 2021. And when you click on this one, it is going to trigger that sequence or the data action, which involves 2 steps in it. So that's going to be the process for performing planning operations in Analytics Cloud. You can name this data action to say copy 2020 to 2021, something like that, and it's going to come here. So this is how we embed or attach the data actions in SAC story. And the next topic I wanted to just briefly show here is the analytics designer for planning. So you got several APIs for planning. For example, in this screenshot you can take a look at that switching to edit mode for planning. It can be done using a design scripting. You can enable it by the button, and you can also disable with that button. You can also do the user inputs for planning, and then when you click on that button it is going to get saved to the model. So there are some advanced planning scripting capabilities as well in the analytics designer. So we will also cover those in the detail in the next exercises. And the final or the other topics what I was talking about, data locking, auditing, and security, other planning features, we will discuss them in detail in the next sessions as well. So that's all I have got for introduction to SAC planning capabilities in comparison to BPC planning capabilities. And then we will start looking at the all these planning features in detail in SAC in the next upcoming sessions. And also we compare or reference to BPC topics for every action we do or every learning we do in SAC planning. Thank you very much. For detailed training on SAC, please reach out to me at surumpallis@gmail.com. Thank you. Bye for now.